Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for joining in for our second webinar on the topic of Zakat. Today, we are going to be covering a little bit of a different topic, but building on from the content that we discussed initially. And in today's presentation, our goal will be to go over wealth with purpose. What does Islam view regarding wealth? What are the calculations that have to go into this, equation? And then inshallah, we'll also allow for Q&A again at the end. So just want to, invite you all. We're going to play a short video introducing Sharia Portfolio, and then I will introduce our scholar, Sheikh Arij Anwar, and the topic again for those who have just joined a little bit later. So if you're already in, we'll play a short video, and then we will start our actual presentation in about 3-4 minutes here. All right, and those who are on Facebook, if you did not get a chance to register for our Zoom link, you also have the ability to follow us live on our Facebook page. So just wanted to mention that in case you have friends, you're welcome to, ask them to join in online through their Facebook page. And again, we're gonna play a short video for you just to give you an idea of what Sharia Portfolio is all about, what are the services that we offer, and then we'll get started in more detail regarding the topic of discussion for today, which is on Zakat, wealth with purpose. So Brother Salahuddin, whenever you're ready, you can.
Brother Ali, what screen are you looking at right now?
I'm looking at the first screen. I think we need to move to the second screen and play that.
Okay, so I'll play the video right now
Okay.
for our attendees, inshallah.
In 2017, there were over 3 million Muslims, and by 2050, this population is projected to exceed 8 million. Despite this growth, only a small fraction of the world's financial assets are halal, meaning they adhere to Muslim faith and avoid investments in unlawful industries and interest-based finance. Sharia Portfolio has been offering Sharia-compliant investing options for over 15 years, carefully maintaining social responsibility and ethics in its investment choices. To do this, the firm applies a socially responsible screen to a company's business activities and consults with its advisors, allowing clients to achieve their financial goals while conforming to their personal values. Using a value-based investment philosophy, Sharia Portfolio conducts deep fundamental analysis to identify the best stocks, mutual funds, and ETFs to build resilient halal portfolios. The firm provides a high-touch service and acts as a fiduciary, compensated only by fees, not commissions. Sharia Portfolio provides halal investment options for wide-ranging investor needs. Whether you are just starting to invest or you have a well-established portfolio, it also has options for company-sponsored retirement plans and financial advisors with Muslim clients. And the Sharia Portfolio team has expertise across the wealth and investment management spectrums. We believe that practicing Muslims should carefully consider the sources of their income and investments to adhere with Sharia compliance. Interested in learning more about Sharia compliant investing and how Sharia Portfolio can help you achieve your financial goals? Visit our website or give us a call today.
All right, thank you for that short video. For our participants, I see that more people have joined in to our presentation. Thank you all again for tuning in. I would like to begin by greeting of salutation for all the participants Also, introduce our dear Sheikh, my respected elders and brothers and sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, we are joined here to cover a very special topic that a lot of us like to learn more about, especially during the month of Ramadan, because this is usually a month where a lot of people are charitable in their giving, and the zakat contributions peak during this month, especially during the last 10 nights. So what we're going to talk about is wealth with purpose, investing, and zakat. And the idea here we're going to cover is, what is the purpose of wealth in Islam? What's our priority when it comes to money? And what are the views of Islam with regards to wealth, the principles of Sharia compliant investments, and how we can go ahead and calculate zakat on investments as well. So this will be an exciting topic. We're going to allow some Q&A at the end as well. About our Sheikh, or our scholar for today, Sheikh Arij Anwar, he holds a Bachelor's of Islamic Sciences from Al-Madinah International University of Malaysia in Fiqh and Usulul Fiqh. He studied these sciences under the teachers from Egypt for over a decade and continues to do so each week. He's also completed degrees in computer science and education as well. He's been serving as an imam and educator for the last decade. As an imam, he has led Taraweeh and Qiyam prayers at Milton Masjid, Islamic Community Center of Milton, Masjid Khalid bin Walid, Masjid IMO, and Islamic Center of Southwest Ontario. He's been a regular khatib and lecturer across the GTA and London. As an educator, he has graduating 24 Huffaz at Quran at Al-Huda Institute. He's published a full 6-level Arabic curriculum for Islamic schools at Bayina Institute and taught over 500 students Arabic online through Bayina Institute as well as Al-Kawthar Institute, and has been involved in publications, books on the Prophet's du'as, and also traveled across various cities to give lectures and teach courses. So we're very fortunate to have him present with us today to cover this topic. He was here last week, and we're going to build on, inshallah, from what we covered last time. For all our audience, thank you again for joining in. Sharia Portfolio, you saw a little bit of a video, but just to give you an overview, we're a full-service wealth management firm. We're located, our headquarters here in Lake Mary, Orlando, Florida, and we have been in business since 2003, serving clients all over the United States. And one of our affiliated companies is now also offering investment management services for Canadian Muslims as well. And we're offering all kinds of planning, investment management for your retirement, 401ks, IRAs, education savings. And at the same time, you get the ability to interact one-on-one with an advisor, so we can help you along your journey and build customized portfolios for you. And so inshallah, at the end, you'll see our contact information, but just wanted to introduce that briefly. My name again is Ali Radha Walji, and I help to manage our US operations. Today, I'm also joined with Shafaq Qazi, who is a licensed advisor, and she'll be helping us answer some of the questions as well, inshallah. So without further ado, we'll turn this to our scholar, Sheikh Arij Anwar, to kick us off, and we can get started on this subject, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa la rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I was gonna say, Brother Ali Radha, before I get into the topic today, should we take a couple of the questions that were lingering from last time? What do you think about that?
No, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and knock some of those out. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do that, inshallah, first. So would you like to?
Yeah. So yeah, I actually sent you in the message, but I'll go ahead and bring it up here. So one of the participants asked, annually they calculate their zakat on the 1st of Sha'ban and pay their dues during Ramadan. But suppose they help the needy with zakat 3 months after Ramadan. Can they count that contribution as zakat paid in advance for that particular year? So that's one of the questions.
Yes, absolutely. Zakat that you pay ahead of time can count for the next year as being paid ahead of time for sure.
Okay. Hopefully that answers the question. The second topic, or the second question here, was that they tend to pay zakat through masajids and other non-profit organizations. is it okay to claim those contributions on my taxes? Maybe you or someone, the Sheikh can shed light on this during the presentation. So basically, is their zakat a tax deductible donation? Can they go ahead and claim that as a tax deductible donation?
That's a great question, actually. I think this is obviously a contemporary problem, right? This is not something that was something that happened in the past. And the idea of a tax deduction is that it is something that the government gives you money back for the taxes that you've already paid, right? And this is in essence a way to maximize or rather minimize the amount of tax you're paying. So any zakat that's paid, your intention obviously is to pay zakat. That's the first and foremost priority. But we can have a secondary intention, which is that I would like this zakat to contribute towards me lessening my taxes, and inshallah you can definitely claim that. And that money that you get as tax return, you don't have to it's not like that money is now owed in zakat or that money is part of the zakat. That's just money that you're getting back, and that wealth is like any other wealth. You hold it for a year and then you pay zakat on it.
Jazakallah. Those are the two main questions for now, and then inshallah, as the different questions trickle in, we'll address those maybe during a pause in between, or maybe mostly towards the end, inshallah.
Sounds great, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's get started. I will share my screen with you to just show you a few things here, inshallah. I have this document that I was using last time. I've updated it, and what I'll do is I will send the updated version to Brother Ali Rida and Sister Shafaq, and they can share with you all, inshallah. And this has some of the a bit more detail that is United States specific, inshallah. Okay. I actually wanted to start a little bit with what we consider to be like Islam's, or what our religion teaches us when it comes to about saving, investing, and accumulating wealth. I think that's a good starting point. I won't spend too much time on it, but I'll spend a little bit of time addressing this. The rest of this information you can kind of read on your own. It's pretty straightforward. And I have the translations there for you to read and think about, inshallah. For the sake of time, I want to keep some time for zakat calculations, and I have a spreadsheet that I'll be utilizing to show you how zakat calculations are done, and that also I will share with the Ali Rida, and they can pass that on to the people, inshallah. Okay, that's it. What is our view of wealth in Islam? It's important that we understand that in Islam, we consider blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be blessings, any lack of blessings to be a test. And that is how we view every single thing in life. If a person has privilege, that's a blessing. If they don't have privilege, that's a test. And the blessing is a test in itself too. Like Allah says in the Quran, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ. He's created death and life, so He may test you. And that is how we view everything. Money is exactly the same. We don't believe money is inherently evil. We don't believe either that accumulating wealth in itself is sinful. Okay, and here is the thing, but there's some details to understand about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, in this ayah number 215 of this is surah number 2, ayah 215. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلْ مَا أَنْفَقْتُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ فَلِلْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ. They ask you, O Prophet, what should they give? Say, whatever you should give, whatever you give should be for parents, close relatives, the orphans, the needy, the travelers. What's interesting in this ayah that I've highlighted is the word that is used in the Quran for wealth in this ayah is not mal, it is khair. And khair means something that is good, right? Like you might know Surah Al-Qadr, Laylatul Qadri khayrun min alfi shahr. The night of power has more goodness, more khair in it than 1,000 months. So that is the same word that Allah uses to describe money. So that tells you that our religion is teaching us that money is not inherently evil. For in the hands of a good person, money is goodness. It's khair, and that is how we understand it. Like Tabari says, khair in this ayah means wealth. Okay, but we also understand that wealth is a test. Innama amwalukum wa awladukum fitna. Your wealth and your children are a test for you. Okay. And Allah calls children, by the way, as a gift. يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا. They're a gift from Allah. But they're also a test. Anybody who has children will know that really well, how the kids are a test. There was a friend of mine who had a child recently, and it's a WhatsApp group, all of his friends are there. So one of our friends wrote, the first one is the hardest, and inshallah the second one will be easier. And I replied, I was like, every successive month I feel is the hardest. It never gets easier. That's a joke. It's a joke. Don't be discouraged from having kids. Inshallah. How the kids are a test. There's a friend of mine. I can hear myself as an echo. Maybe WhatsApp group, all of his friends are there. So someone has like the first one is the hardest, and inshallah the second one will be easier. Can you mute yourself, Brother Ali, or someone else? I'm not sure. Maybe like there's a there we go. Alhamdulillah. I could hear myself. It's kind of eerie. So that idea of the test is as such. It is a gift. It is goodness, but it's also a test. Don't let it become the thing. Don't let it become a test that compromises your values. And that's the idea. What's banned for us, what's not permissible for us, is the excessive love of wealth, right? Desiring it and feeling distraught at the loss of it, feeling very, very uneasy spending it. That idea is not something that the Quran very clearly chastises. And if you notice, when the Quran chastises us for the love of wealth, it is somebody who doesn't spend for taking care of others. So that's the idea about wealth. And the idea is that wealth is a good thing in the hand of a good person, and not having wealth is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is something that we should ask Allah to protect us from that test. And then I mentioned some of those wealthy companions. The Prophet didn't actually have a lot of wealth. He passed away with very little. But there were other companions who accumulated plenty of wealth, like Zubair, like Abdurrahman ibn Auf, like Uthman ibn Affan. And these are the top 10 companions. Just shows us that it's not like haram for us to accumulate wealth. It is, inshallah, permissible, as long as the love of it does not make us do something impermissible, as long as we don't hold back the rights of others that are due, as long as we're not like the ones who are stingy and not helping others. Saving and investing, is it encouraged or discouraged? It is, in fact, encouraged in Islam to save. If you remember the list of spending priorities, number one on that list was spending on your financial liabilities, the people that you have to take care of. Number two is zakat. Number three is sadaqah, or philanthropy, that's optional. And number four is saving and investing. The Prophet said, "Ala man waliya yatiman lahu malun falyattajir fihi." The legal guardian of an orphan should invest the orphan's inheritance, hatta ta'kulahu sadaqah, lest it is consumed by zakat payments. Meaning, it is important for a person who is a guardian of an orphan's wealth. This is a person who is, the child has a large inheritance. Okay. Now, if the wealth sits there for a number of years, every year it will reduce by 2.5%. And subhanAllah, by the time the child becomes old, maybe a quarter of it's gone. And that's not fair to the child. So the Prophet is instructing the guardian of this child, and the guardian of this child's wealth, that you should فَلْيَتَّجِرْ فِيهِ. Ittijar is like to do business transactions. That's why I'm translating it as invested. It should be invested so it grows, and thus the growth of it can take care of the zakat. So the principle is, it's responsible for a person to save, and it's responsible for them to invest that saving, because if you don't, zakat will continue to chip away at your savings. And that is an important principle that our deen teaches us. This is the deen of the fitrah, what is it makes sense logically, the tenets of our faith. The Quran is the al-kitab al-mubin, wal-kitab al-mubin, the book that makes things clear. So these are things that it's principles that our Prophet taught that appeal to our fitrah, and this is one of those. And also, like, it's the idea of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was wanting to give away all of his wealth in charity. The Prophet said, don't do that. When he was about to pass away, he's like, I don't have many dependents. The Prophet said, well, إِنَّكَ أَن تَذَرَ وَرَثَتَكَ أَغْنِيَاءَ خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أَن تَذَرَهُمْ عَالَةً يَتَكَفَّفُونَ النَّاسِ. You leaving your heirs wealthy is better than you leaving them poor and dependent on the people. And this is a principle that we save for our kids. We save for ourselves, we save for a rainy day, but we also save for our kids so they are dependent on others. And that is not a negation of tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way. And that is something the Prophet was saying to Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, another top 10 companion, right? So as you can see, these are this is instruction given to the highest level of companions, and encouragement for them. Obviously, by default, is encouragement to us, and this is the dua I encourage you to make. Allahumma kfini bi halalika an haramik wa aghnini bi fadlika amman siwak. Oh Allah, grant me enough of what you make lawful, so that I may dispense with what you make unlawful, and enable me by your grace to dispense with all but you. That means is, oh Allah, give me halal income that inshallah will take care of all my needs, that allows me to have enough wealth, and I can live with comfortably and luxuriously, and I can help people, and then I have no need for haram, oh Allah. So that's a beautiful dua. I encourage you to make it. All of these are in the notes. You can read that there. One thing about sadaqah that I like to point out is the Quran mentions this in ayah 219, surah number 2, ayah 219. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ. They ask you what they should spend. Okay, what they should spend. يَسْأَلُونَكَ, this is the people asking are the Sahaba. Okay, قُل, the response is whatever is surplus to your needs. Al-afwa. So the ayah clearly tells us there's a spending priority. You take care of your liabilities, you take care of your zakat, and then whatever is excess, what surpasses your needs, that is what's used for sadaqah, philanthropy. That's what's used for saving. So a few quick points. The rest of these are pretty, straightforward ayat that talk about the virtues of giving sadaqah. I encourage you to read them and support good projects that you feel need that support. With that, let's get into the zakat, inshallah. Any questions about this particular point? I don't think there's any questions about this particular issue.
Yeah, so far the questions are more in regards to how to calculate the zakat. One question maybe you can address now is, do you have to pay zakat internationally, or should it be only done locally?
Okay, so I was going to get to that here, right? Where do you give zakat, right? Who, what, when, and then the last one was where. Okay, so where, let's address that firstly, right? So the Prophet ﷺ has encouraged us to give our zakat to this is the order, to relatives. Okay, relatives, because the Prophet said ﷺ, this is sadaqah wa sila. It is an act of charity, and it's also an act of strengthening family ties and being grateful to Allah for giving us family. Okay, so that is that. And then the relatives, as I had mentioned previously, this is someone who is not your immediate dependent, like your parents, grandparents are not, you can't give zakat to them. Likewise, kids, grandkids, you cannot give zakat to them. And spouse also, you cannot give zakat to her. And most correct opinion also, she can't give it to you either. Okay, excluding that, anybody else who is a family member, who is a needy, qualifies, it's important to support family and take care of them wherever they are, local, like in whatever country you're living in, or abroad in a different country. If the relatives are, alhamdulillah, not in need of zakat, it is recommended the zakat be given locally. Why is that? Because the Prophet, when he instructed the Mu'adh, he said to the Mu'adh that تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. Zakat is taken from their rich and given to their poor, meaning it is for the locality. And then Umar radiallahu anhu, for example, would, once the locals were exhausted, then he would take zakat and do something else with it. Or when another part of a Muslim, another area of a Muslim, in the Muslim Khilafah, their zakat was done, like all the recipients were taken care of, then they would send the excess to Umar, the Khalifa, right? So the idea is that everyone takes care of their people first, and then the rest is given, is moved on. Now, such circumstances for us are different, because a lot of times, like our Muslim brothers and sisters abroad are in a lot worse situations, then are, generally speaking, not to belittle anyone's trial, but generally speaking, there is a lack of infrastructure and services and support systems abroad, unfortunately, in many Muslim majority countries. And that's why people would like to give their zakat there. And that is fine, and that is good as well. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like if you give your zakat abroad, all of a sudden that doesn't count. It's just the order here is to tell you what's better. And this is under normal circumstances. Now, under exceptional circumstances like we're in today, where mass amount of people have no income anymore, and they're really affected by that, then it's really as the situation arises. Okay, wherever you feel you can help, please do so, inshallah.
All right, thank you. So I think the other questions, maybe as we do the zakat calculations, maybe we'll address some of their questions.
Perfect. Let's do that, inshallah. All right. So let's start here. We spoke about already, like, why zakat, and it's a pillar of Islam. I explained to you nisab last time, right? It's a minimum amount of wealth that's required, and it is due on these assets. But the ones that really matter to us is cash and cash-like assets and business commodities. But we're going to focus more on cash and cash-like assets today, inshallah. Okay, because that really is majority of people that concerns them. And business commodities are just questions. We can talk about it in the Q&A. Okay. So now, zakat, for it to be due, the wealth must be the following, meet the following conditions. It must be accessible. Okay. If the wealth is not accessible, it is excluded. Now that means pensions are excluded. UTMA, which is a education saving program, that is excluded, because even though you technically can access that money, but you're putting it away to save for your child's education. And that is what will exclude it from zakat, because it is put away for that particular purpose. Retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, or similar, until it is time to cash out without penalty. Here is the thing that is important about cashing out. I have some notes here. I attended this conference, UMJA conference, and this was, subhanAllah, in 2019. This was about the contemporary financial issues. There were a lot of really good presentations about a lot of things that are contemporary in nature, not just zakat, but more like, purchasing so the life insurance and insurance in general, and purchasing homes from, like, a whole bunch of these were actually American things. So I didn't even like fully understand what the Sheikh was saying, but like foreclosures, and how the government sometimes gives homes RETSs, and I don't, like, many issues that were covered in this, right? But I'm actually going to refer to the zakat part of this from that book as well. Okay, so, and I can link that to you all, inshallah, where that is. This is all freely accessible. You can read these papers yourself, inshallah, as well. Most of them are in Arabic, but there's also the English ones from the major scholars. They've translated their papers into English, and that's there for you to read as well. Okay, so from that, I'll quote to you, and I'll tell you that zakat is only due on unhindered, fully accessible wealth, which is actively managed by the investor. Okay, so any wealth which is lost or inaccessible, held in an illiquid state, and cannot be accessed freely without penalty, is not liable for zakat. Okay, so there are obviously two opinions on the matter, right? Opinion number one is, just give zakat. Don't worry about it. You eventually will get it. It's your money. The other opinion, which I feel is more appropriate and more in line with the spirit, is that since you don't have access to this money until a certain age, and your access is penalized until that age, you should not be paying zakat on it. And that's the conclusion of the Sheikh here. This is Sheikh Joe Bradford. He's a very good scholar, mashallah. You should refer to his works. Also, similar conclusions were made by Dr. Ma'an, who is the member of the UMJA Fiqh Council. So these accounts are excluded. Okay, included are traditional. Sorry, let me open my sheet.
Traditional is also locked away.
Sorry, I meant to say a Roth.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry about that. Roth IRAs, and then this is the. So I actually updated my spreadsheet, and again, this is that you will get the final version, inshallah. Don't worry. That will be used. Roth IRAs that are over 5 years. So under 5 years, there is a penalty. Correct, Brother Ali Rada?
Yes.
Right?
Generally you have to wait until 59 and a half, but if you leave it for at least 5 years, then the growth can be accessed, from that portion.
Only the growth?
Let me confirm one second.
Yeah.
Well,
What I have here.
Yeah, you can talk about the other one. I'll get back to you in a second.
Right. So Roth IRAs, if you can just confirm that for us about, can you access the fund liquid and penalty free after 5 years or not? That would be really good. But a bit before that, was included, or as Bilal was looking that up, loans receivable, right? So this is included, loans receivable that you have given to people as loans, and you're expecting that money back, and you're pretty certain that is included. A pension.
Yeah, so the question with Roth IRA, Sheikh, the answer on that one is that you still have to wait until 59 and a half, or if it's been open for 5 years or more, the earnings will not be subject to taxes if you take it out, but whatever else that went in will be subject to tax. So if you had 10,000 and it became 12,000, the $2,000 after 5 years is accessible.
Okay.
But the 10,000, if you take it out, it will be penalized.
It will be penalized. Right. Okay. So this is then, let's add that detail there, because then I think my information that I was referring to, it was not fully accurate either. The Roth IRA is the growth on the Roth IRAs after 5 years. How's that?
That's better. Yep.
Right. And then I will update this part here as well. Growth on Roth IRAs after 5 years. All right. So that is that. Oops. No, I don't need help. Alhamdulillah. After 5 years. Okay. So that is that. This is included because this is money that you can access freely, inshallah.
I actually had this myself. Last year, I took out some money from my Roth IRA, and it was money I put in several years ago. And the CPA I was working with, he needed to know, well, how much was the contribution, how much was the growth, and the growth portion was tax-free because I did take out a portion of the contribution, and that portion was taxed. So,
okay. Alhamdulillah. And what's included now is the other, like the opposite of this point, right? The opposite of point 3 here is when you reach a certain age, then that person, and then they can withdraw without penalty, then zakat is paid when you reach that amount. Oh, excuse me, when you reach that age, right? So when a person reaches 59.5 years, and now their retirement account is unhindered access, at that point, they start paying zakat on it. And they start paying zakat actually immediately because they've held it for more than a year, right? They've held it, mashallah, for 59 years or so, or maybe a couple of decades at least, right? So they will pay zakat on it immediately on the value, and then every year, depending on how much is left and how much the expenses are, they will pay zakat on it every subsequent year. Okay, so that's the idea behind accessibility. And again, I'm using the fatwa from the Amja Fiqh Council and also what our dear Sheikh Joe Bradford has written on the topic as well. Okay, so that is that. Accessible wealth, number 2, it's got to be retained for 1 lunar year, and number 3, it's greater than the nisab. The nisab, as you mentioned, was the value of the lower of the gold or silver value in grams, and that is, as we'll get to inshallah very shortly. Okay, we exclude certain items, residential property, value of investment property, because those are things, property is not subject to zakat. Money that's borrowed, jewelry that's worn regularly according to the 3 schools of thought, excluding Imam Abu Hanifa, and other valuables not listed above. So now let's get into actually the spreadsheet right away, because I think that will make things easier. A lot of that will be like theoretical information. The zakat calculator will kind of like put things in more perspective. Okay, so what do I have here? Okay, so I had a Canadian version that I shared with the brother Nadeem, right, from the brother Nadeem on the Canadian side. We were on one of the webinars together, and alhamdulillah, like he was there with us, and it was nice. So this is the USA version, right? I was trying to put a bald eagle in the title, but I don't think I can do that. I'll just put USA.
Sheikh, one quick thing.
Yes.
Take my small error back.
Okay.
It's actually the contribution that can be taken out penalty free at any time, but the earnings are what is subject to a penalty. So if the flip side, what we were saying, so you can withdraw your contributions to a Roth IRA penalty free anytime for any reason, but you will be penalized for withdrawing any investment earnings before 59 and a half.
Or 5 years.
Or 5 years, yeah.
Okay, so let's put contributions to Roth IRA amount.
And 5 years, not or.
Yeah, and 5 years. I mean, it has to be in there for at least 5 years.
Okay, perfect. All right. So contributions to Roth IRA amount after 5 years, correct? So before 5 years, I can't take it out penalty free, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So that is, we'll put that there as that, and then we'll update this point here, contributions to the Roth IRA amount. Okay, perfect. The idea, the principle, again, people, is this, okay? The principle is unhindered wealth, zakat is due on it. Wealth that is inaccessible, zakat is not due on it. And something in the middle, partially hindered, partially not hindered, that's where the difference of opinion lies. Some scholars would say, no, treat it like your unhindered wealth and pay zakat on all of it. Others would say, no, wait until you get it and pay zakat on it. In the Canadian side, actually, there is something slightly different. What I actually tell them there is, you have access to your wealth, and then there's a certain, there's a certain withholding tax that you can deduct, and then the rest of the amount you can pay zakat on, because that's a specific account that we have here that isn't like its exact parallel doesn't exist in America. So it goes back to every country or every place has its own unique investment accounts. The principles remain the same. Okay, inaccessible wealth, no zakat. Accessible wealth, zakat. In the middle, now there's some more details, and that's where some difference of opinions will arise. And this is the ones that I'm sharing with you, inshallah, today. All right, now let's get to it. So now, quantity of gold. Here I'm including gold that is not regularly worn jewelry. This is gold that I purchased as an investment or as an heirloom. Heirloom is something that my mom owned, that she got from her grandmother, that she'll give to my kids. So that idea, I would actually, my opinion is that you include that as something that is valuable something that's valuable as an investment, because it's not regularly worn jewelry. But regularly worn jewelry that is either worn on a daily basis or on parties or anything, like even for like Eid or like weddings, that can be excluded, no problem. And even if that jewelry is to be loaned to like somebody, so you have jewelry that you keep, that like you give to your sister or you give to your cousin, right? That all that can be excluded, no problem. But I'm talking about here is gold for the sake of investing or heirlooms. Now, what is the spot price of gold? Let's do US dollars. What is that per ounce? We will take the price to be, what is that? 1742. All right. So you take that amount. Again, this is the Canadian values here. And now, as you notice, the spreadsheet changed. You notice that it took the resale price of gold. That is 80% of the spot price. Why is this done? This is a fatwa from one of my teachers. He said that it's not fair to calculate your gold according to the spot price, because you can never really get the spot price when you sell your gold. Okay, you're selling it at a resale price. Okay, these are the prices that's listed. You generally get a resale price that is 80%, and that's actually a pretty decent deal if you get 80%. So you include that as the resale price. Now I have, say, I have 5 ounces of gold. Okay, so what my assets here would do is it will take my 5. Okay, I can't make changes actually here, but it will take this 5 ounces and multiply by the resale price, and it'll give me the value of my gold in a dollar amount. That's how we calculate our zakat. Cash and cash-like assets, we value them as dollars, and then we calculate our zakat on them. Okay, what is the spot price of silver? Spot price of silver is probably like $2 or something. Silver US dollar. Funny story, and I'm looking this up. I have a friend who has this is per ounce. Yes, per ounce. Okay. Um, he has like a suitcase of silver sitting in his home. Miskeen is worthless now. He bought it at such a high price. Now it's like much lesser. I guess a lot of people's stock portfolios are looking the same way too, right? But
precious metals is actually a good portion of the portfolio, and I would say silver might go up actually. So.
Oh yeah, okay, alhamdulillah.
I'll let you hold on to some of it.
Oh yeah, alhamdulillah. I'll take that back. Don't take investment advice from me, please. That's Brother Ali's job, all right? Okay, so assume I have 20 ounces of silver, and so now it will calculate again the resale price of my silver, and from that it will tell me the dollar value of my silver. All right. Now I look at cash at bank. In cash at bank, you look at all aspects. Okay, checkings, savings. I put US dollar here because Canadians, we like to hold US dollars as like a way to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. But for you guys, it's all US dollars. PayPal, any place where you hold money. Okay, add all of that together. And you put that amount here. So say I have maybe $5,000 cash at bank, all right? By the way, I was saying checking, savings, etc. Technically, you shouldn't have a savings account because most, if not all, savings account are the return on it is an interest-bearing return, unless it's a very specific sukuk type of saving. Do you have a product like that in America, a sukuk saving account?
No, that's why we do encourage a lot of people who have excess savings beyond what their emergency needs might be. We encourage them to consider like an income portfolio or income strategy could be an alternative to a savings account. But yeah, that problem is an issue with banks charging interest here as well.
Yeah. So if it is in an account, excuse me, if it is an account that is a savings account, the principle in Islam is that zakat is only due on pure wealth. It is not due on impure wealth. It is not due on interest that you have earned. In reality, you should stop earning that interest. That's the first step. But the second step is that interest should be given away, not as like sadaqah that counts as like an act of seeking closeness to Allah, but as a way of purifying your wealth from something that is impermissible. And then whatever is principal, whatever is left of the principal, that is added to your cash bank. So this is important. It's kind of like it's something that we need to be careful of. Our like I mentioned, our wealth is a way, Allah calls it khair, it's called goodness, but it is also a test. And the test of wealth for us comes in how we oftentimes save it and invest it. Okay, and it's important that we do it according to the principles of Islam. Cash in hand. Cash in hand is any cash that you may have, lying around. So say maybe I have $300 of this. Okay. Now contributions to IRA amount after 5 years.
Anything basically that's accessible, that's not tied up. That's the
accessible, idea. Right? That's it, right? Accessible, not tied up, that amount. So say I have that amount as $1,000, okay? Other liquid investments. So now this is not in a registered account, but perhaps you just have like a trading account, right? You guys have that too, right? Like you just have a trading account.
Individual joint account, perhaps there's someone just invests some cash that they have. That can be liquid.
Right. That would be considered liquid investment, because you would have unfettered, unhindered access to it. So say maybe you have $5,000 in that as well. Loans receivable, some loans that you gave to somebody who you are expecting that, yes, you know what, this is going to be good. So that they will return that money back to you. you add that. And that gives you your total assets, right? Now we will do also some liabilities as well, because they're important to discuss as well. But before we talk about liabilities, a question you might be asking is, you said retained for 1 lunar year over here. And here you're asking me to do like this tally that is like at this current moment. I may not have had the $5,000 for the whole year. I may not have had the $300 for the whole year, right? What gives? How does this work? Here is the way to understand this. And the reason why this calculator is the way it is. If you have money that is lump sum, right? Say you sold your house, okay? And now you have a bunch of money that came into your bank account at a specific date. I would exclude that money because that's a lump sum money that came, right? If you have money that is scheduled is it comes every single month or every 2 weeks, paychecks, whatever else you might get as income, it will be very, very difficult to track which money you've held for how long, because the flow of money is scheduled, okay? Back in the day, particularly before, like I would say, before the Industrial Revolution for sure, but even like maybe like before the modern day banking system came into existence, people's money was not so scheduled. It was often like they would sell something and that will be their savings for the next few months. And then they would, harvest a crop and that would be their savings. Like the money that they earned from that would last them 6 months. Or products they would sell at at some frequency, but it wasn't scheduled. Okay, that's kind of how it used to work, and that is what like zakat was. That's what the framework zakat existed in. Understanding that you have these individual moments in your calendar year where you have acquired wealth, and thus a person who is acquiring wealth in that way would track, okay, this money came in Sha'ban, and this money came in Muharram, and this money came in at this point, and they would just track that without too much difficulty because there's maybe 3 or 4 major transactions for them, right? And then each of that transaction, they would then pay zakat on it once they had held it for a year. Now for us, the matter is quite different. If you are a bi-weekly, if your paychecks are bi-weekly, you are getting them 26 times a year. Good luck tracking that, right? It's not 3 or 4 major transactions, it's 26 cash inflows into your account. So thus the recommendation, the fatwa from the councils is separate your lump sum and track it as a separate lunar year, because that's fair, right? That won't be fair to just include it in this calculation. But in this calculation, on the first day of your lunar month, check your accounts and just list them all as the final values, even if that money was not with you for the whole year, for the ease and simplification of the calculation. Assume now my calendar year begins, or my lunar year, my calculation is 1st of Ramadan, as many people do, right? So on 1st of Ramadan, I will do this. I will go through my spreadsheet, I will write down all of these values, and I will calculate this, even if not all of it I have held for a lunar year. Okay, is that point clear? Inshallah, people online might be wondering this. I don't see a question about it, so I'm going to assume if a question comes in later, we'll talk about it, right? But this is an important point to consider, okay? And this is why we do this simplified version of the calculation. Now we come to liabilities. So as you can see, zakat is not due on borrowed money, loans payable. All right. Now, loans payable are what? Money that you have to pay back. Loan payable, like money that we have to pay back, is basically 2 types generally. One is like a short-term loan. So maybe I owe my friend some money, right? I owe him, maybe say $5,000. Okay, I borrowed some money from him. That's a short-term loan. Okay. Now there is a long-term loan. Long-term loans are loans that are for many, many years that you are paying them. This includes mortgages, hopefully halal, student loans, car financing, etc. Okay, leasing, by the way, doesn't count. Renting doesn't count because rental agreements in Islam are just rental agreements. They're not a loan that you have acquired. Okay, but this is only for loans that we're doing the calculation for. Now, the fatwa from the scholars, the councils, is that to make the calculations simplified, you take your long-term loan commitment and calculate what is your yearly loan commitment. Okay, what is your yearly loan payable from the long term? Okay, so how does that work? You take the principal part. So say I have a mortgage that I'm paying $1,000 a month on the principal. Okay, and then also I have maybe a car loan that I'm paying $500 a month on the principal. And maybe I also have a student loan that I'm paying $500 a month on principal. Okay, not the interest, the principal of it. Okay, I add all these amounts and that will tell me my overall loan, right? For the year, my overall liability for the year, the money that I owe. The money that I owe, zakat is not payable on it. It gives me that amount. And that is my liabilities. Okay. Now, this is done so that it comes fair. If someone has a mortgage of $500,000 and they say, I owe $500,000, so this man's never paying zakat, mashallah. He is going to live out the rest of his life not paying zakat. So so that is not fair. Also, someone who has like a long-term loan commitment and to say, your loans don't count, just pay zakat on everything. That's also not fair. So to find that middle path, this is the suggested strategy. And that is how it comes out. Now, I purposely put a lot of extra, loans here to show that if that's the case, look at my liabilities. My liabilities are quite a lot, 29,000. My assets are not so much, 20,000. My net now is actually lesser, 8 minus 8,000. And this is less than the nisab, right? So in that case, I don't actually have any zakat due. Now let's do the calculation again. Maybe I paid off my personal loan, alhamdulillah. Maybe I've also paid off my student loans, alhamdulillah. What a feeling that is. And now, alhamdulillah, I have much lesser of liabilities. My assets remain the same. And as you notice now, my net is, alhamdulillah, at this amount. It is greater than the nisab value. It is greater than $317. That's the nisab value. And thus my zakat, 2.5% of this amount is due. If you've already paid some zakat, you already paid zakat before, you can add that here. I paid $100 in zakat, khalas, no more zakat need to be paid for the year. Okay? But if you didn't, this is how you calculate. Now assume, mashallah, this person is a really awesome guy and has no liabilities. Allahu Akbar. What a feeling. This now person has $20,000 of assets, and you may think, wow, $20,000, that's a lot of money. How much zakat is that? That's $500. Okay? And if you were to pay that monthly to somebody that you like to support, that comes out to like $40 and change a month, right? And that is the zakat you pay for the small price for salvation that you pay, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I think that is very helpful. And I think this Excel sheet will also be provided, inshallah, in case anyone is wondering. We'll provide this along with the notes for you so you can use this in your calculations. But it looks like people are, this is a topic that generally does generate a good amount of questions on the audience side. But Sheikh, before I jump into the questions, anything else that we didn't cover in this spreadsheet, or this pretty much gives us a good idea on what we needed to be aware of so that we have a good idea on calculation?
Quick note about investment properties. I think that might answer some questions. Okay.
Yes.
So zakat on investments. Let's start with investment properties of land. It depends on your intention. If I bought a house to live in, by default, no zakat. And I can have multiple accounts, or excuse me, multiple houses that are like my personal usage homes. Okay, assume I'm a rich man. So I have a house in Canada. I have a house in Karachi. I have a cottage up in Muskoka. And you're like, well, brother, you have so many houses. Yeah, so it's all of my personal property. No zakat on that. All right, no zakat. But if I started to rent my properties, I'm renting my cottage out, for example, then in rental income, I will add it. I will add it to my cash at bank. Right? I will just add that money to my cash at bank, whatever of it is remaining. Okay. What happens if I had purchased land expecting growth? Okay. I purchased land and I'm like, you know what? Eventually I will build something on it. No zakat on that. But I purchased a land. I'm like, you know what? This is a growing suburb of the city. And within a couple of years, this land's going to be like, or this house will be double in value. Okay. I don't know if that's the case in America, but in Toronto, this was like crazy. Like it's ridiculous. There's people who have like 4 or 5 homes and they just purchase it just waiting for the appreciation to go up so they can sell it and make a quick buck. That is now you're treating your purchase not as not as a house you live in, neither as a investment property that you're earning rent off, but rather this is now a business asset. Okay, this is now considered to be a business asset, so you will pay on the entirety of the value on that particular property or that land. When your intention is to purchase expecting growth, and Imam Ahmad says something very nice. He's like, we leave this intention between person and their Lord, because if they're running away from zakat, who are they running away from, right? So the intention here matters quite a lot. Gold and silver we already talked about. Stocks, there's one important thing I like to mention. Stocks, if you generally you just evaluate the whole amount. Okay, so your portfolio, just take the whole value, assuming you have full access to it, just take the whole value. That's called mark-to-market method. The other method is the current asset percentage method. So the current asset percentage method would be like would include fixed costs of a company, right? So say like a company has, let's take the analogy of a bakery, right? You won't pay zakat if you own the bakery on the oven or the equipment, but you pay zakat on the products you produce, okay? So the current asset percentage method is that it actually allows you to go into like, or to execute that, you have to go to like the financial statement of a company and remove all the fixed assets from the company's valuation, and then whatever is remaining, that percentage you take and apply to their stock value and pay zakat on that. So if your stock is $100, but you're like, you know what, $35 of this value, 35% of this company is fixed assets. So then you only pay zakat on $65 of that stock price, because the other 35 are like the oven in the bakery, like the kneading pins, not the actual products. So that's that, but this is complex. It's not very easy to do, right? And I would recommend this for someone who has like a lot of stocks and they really like, this would really be fair to them. Most people I would recommend use the market method. Wallahu a'lam.
All right, thank you, Sheikh. So let us start fielding some of these questions, because I do see a decent amount coming in.
Yes.
One of them said, look, if you're paying transaction fees for the zakat companies that are receiving that donation that you're giving towards zakat, the question is, what about those transaction fees, overhead charges? Is that also to be included in the zakat? Let's say they say 5% of the fees for transaction, purposes. So what's the answer to that?
Yeah, this is a question. It's a really good question. Here's the thing. Let me give you an analogy. If I'm giving zakat to my cousin in Pakistan, for example, okay, it's my responsibility to pay the wiring fees, right? The bank wire fees. It's not like the way we see zakat is like zakat is that person's right. If I have to pay, right, in this spreadsheet, I have to pay $500 of zakat. Okay, that $500 out of this 20,534 is no longer my property. It is the property of that poor person. Now it's my job to get it to that person somehow. If that means I have to pay the bank $30 to wire that money to him, that's on me. I have to pay that, right? So that is how you view it for individuals. Now for NGOs and charities, you are paying probably by like a card, and the card, you don't get charged for the card, they get charged for the card, right? So it really goes back to you. Do you feel like this is something you should do? cover the transaction fees, like you're going to cover the wiring fees to your cousin. You feel like that's an appropriate analogy, then go for it. If you feel no, that's the end user's responsibility. They should be actively negotiating with PayPal to reduce their fees and overheads, which can be done, by the way. Like masjids can actually get a lot of fee. Charities can get a lot of fees waived. I'm sure in America and in Canada as well. And then if you believe that to be the case, then you don't have to cover their transaction fees because that's essentially their business.
Thank you. I think that's a good one. Hopefully that addresses the question there. There's another one here. Investors derive interest from stock and or savings accounts. We are required to purify our investments by giving away that portion of non-halal earning. The Sheikh was saying that one should not have a savings account. Would this also apply? So basically the idea is that if you have any growth that happened because it was interest income or non-permissible income, that has to be purified, and then the clean wealth is what is zakatable, correct?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay, great. One question here is that land that is prepared for sale is subject to zakat. The evidence for that is from the hadith Samura bin Jundab, who said the messenger of Allah, peace be and blessings of Allah be upon him, commanded us to pay zakat on everything that was prepared for sale. So this is a question about land, and they're saying Sheikh Ibn Baz was mentioning that. So what's the opinion on that? Because I know we did say the intention matters. If you're buying the land for appreciation, it's kind of like an investment opportunity. And if it's meant for appreciation and later you want to flip it or sell that land for a bigger profit, then you have to pay zakat on that whole piece, right?
Exactly. In fact, there is a consensus of scholars that land that is purchased for either personal residence or land that's purchased without any like explicit intention, like you don't really have an intention when you purchase it, there's no zakat on it until you figure out what you want to do with it. So this hadith is about the person who is now purchasing it for the sake of either growth, or they've had this house and now they're going to sell this house or land. So that money, once they have held that money for a year, will be zakat will be due on that. So that's how we understand this. Wallahu alam.
Okay. So one person asks, their mother doesn't work. The only source of their income is through rental income coming in. Do you pay zakat on the rental income, or we just pay it as whatever she saves at the end of the year?
Right. So it's the whatever is cash at bank, right? At the beginning of your or the end of your lunar year, whatever that amount is. So if a person's income is exactly equal to their expenses, they may not have a lot of cash at bank at the end of the year, right?
Great.
So it goes by that. There's one question here. Sorry, someone mentioned that they are subject to student loans or car loans. They're subject to interest. Is it permissible to do that? That's not what I implied, and neither is it. I'm not condoning that. I'm just giving you the example of the one who, real talk, a lot of people have this. But if you do have it, then the way you will calculate your liability is as follows: by removing the interest part of it and using the principal part, and multiply that by 12.
Great. Any other ones, Sheikh, as you see these questions that look like we can address here?
Okay, let's see. Let me go from. We can dismiss the ones that we answered. I was under the impression that investment property is zakat eligible unless there is income being derived from it, i.e. rental. So no, zakat. The investment property zakat is on the income, not on the property itself. Allahu a'lam. Is zakat due on paying $1,000 in debt due to being scammed out of money by a Muslim? I don't understand the question.
Yeah, I think if someone you got into debt because they lost on a bad investment opportunity, for example.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you lost money in business, you lost money.
Right.
That's just.
Yeah. you lost money, so maybe your liabilities increased. If your
Yeah.
savings is still, again, the same principle will apply. Your liabilities are up. We pray that inshallah it doesn't happen, but if you lost money because of a bad investment,
That's it. You lost money, right?
then
Yeah.
you lost money. So yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily make it into a debt obligation, right? How do we pay zakat for high net worth individuals? May Allah make us among those. Say we get $1.5 million investments and growth on that level is higher than one's salary, but less than one's zakat obligation. How will we pay that? For example, I have $1.1 million. My zakat obligation would be north of 27.5, which is very difficult to come up with annually if one is a salaried worker towards the end of one's career. Excellent question, Brother Jamil Nicholson. Is he still here, Brother Jamil? I hope you are. That's an excellent question. That's a question. He's here, mashallah. So the person who is saving or contributing to their zakat as they are building, the person who is contributing to their investments, building their retirement to retire on, and they are now towards that stage of life where they're close to the end of their work, and that money that they have earned, if they were to pay zakat on that investment, it would actually consume their salary, or they would have to liquidate their investments to pay that. Okay? The person who gets to that point, or the person who is retired, assume, Brother Jamil, you're retired and you're living off of your zakat, you're living off of your investment portfolio, right? Pension and investment portfolio returns, you're living on a combination of that. In that case, your zakat is not due on the entire value of your portfolio. You will assume that your zakat, your portfolio is like an investment home, and then the growth of that portfolio is like your rental income. So say you have $1 million of a portfolio and you've now retired and you're living off of the dividends that you are extracting from this investment portfolio, right? Or you extract a certain amount of money every year, and that's your salary, okay? But what you would do is that you will pay zakat only on the growth of your investment portfolio for the year. So assume your portfolio grew by 10%, mashallah, okay? We ask Allah to return us to those times. So now you will pay it not on the million, but on the 10% growth, and you would add that to your cash at bank, and then whatever else your, expenditures would be removed from that, and that would be what you pay zakat on. So you consider your investment, short answer, like your investment home, and the growth like your rental income.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sheikh. That was a good explanation. Hopefully it addresses the question by Brother Jamil here. And the other one is regarding why not prepare your balance sheet annually, then compare your net worth for the 2 years, then calculate zakat on the lower of the two amounts.
Yeah.
I think because the person is saying maybe in 1 year you may have more income, 1 year might be less, so compare the 2 years.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I think that's what they think.
Yeah, I don't know.
It has to be done year by year, right? I can't predict the future. I have to base it off of my current year, right?
Yeah. It is. I once presented this, and there was a professor of computer science in the audience. He's like, you know what I do? I'm like, yes. What do you do? He's like, I have like he has like an equation, and the equation averages out his income over the year, and then he takes the floor of all those averages, and this is like a real-time thing. I'm like, Dr. Mahmoud, you can do that. The rest of us can't do that. So if you have a sophisticated way of calculating your net worth and you feel this is acceptable, then by all means, you can do that. But this is a simplified way that I'm sharing with you, inshallah.
But generally, you have to do it year by year, right?
Definitely. It has to be year by year, definitely.
Yeah. All right. The other one I see here then is if you're expecting a big expenditure right after, let's say, your 1 year mark, can you deduct the expenditure from zakat as you won't have the money eventually? So let's say because we're looking at the spot based on the current situation, what's in the bank, but I have, let's say, an upcoming expense that's going to fall after the date of my 1 year mark. Should I deduct that expense now, or should I, should I not? I think that's what the question is.
So it depends on, generally when someone's asking that question, they're asking generally about like a house down payment or something, right? Like I have to make a down payment for a house and I have this money, and if I was to pay zakat, then I won't have the down payment, right? If that is the case, so it goes back to the nature of the transaction. If you have committed, you've signed that you're purchasing, you've signed the purchase agreement for your house, right? And the down payment for that house will then be due. The closing is like after your zakat is due, right? Then the money that you have saved for the down payment will be excluded from your zakat calculations because you've already committed, you've already signed the purchase agreement, all right? But if you're in the process of looking for a house, you're not sure, you're still, then in that case, you haven't secured it yet, right? It's not established yet. Only once it's established that that is a purchase you're making and you've made that commitment, then you can remove that money from your balance, because at that point you don't have, it's not fully your money. Now you have committed to giving it to somebody else. But until that happens, you can't do that. Wallahu a'lam. So it depends on the situation, but this is generally what comes about when this kind of question is asked.
Jazakallah khair. Looks like today we did good. We were able to address all the questions, hopefully. And if I'm sure as other questions come up, we're here for you. Our team is accessible. Our contact information is right here. You're welcome to reach out directly to either myself or Shafaq who are on this presentation today. Our website is there. You can also just send in an inquiry to just info@shariaportfolio.com or email us directly. Of course, we are inshallah going to share with you the slides and the information that we have been presenting over the past 2 weeks. Last week there was the introductory presentation, and then today we did more of the in-depth calculations as well. Looks like there's one last one lucky for this person, and then we can inshallah wrap up. So if a relative is struggling financially, but they may have assets, gold, that is zakat, are they zakat eligible, or do they need to sell their assets first?
That's an excellent question. So a person who has who receives zakat, kind of like a person who is not, like they have some assets, but in reality they're not, they don't have an income, right? What is this person eligible? Is it okay to give them zakat, right? The answer to that is,
I think what they're asking, are they zakat eligible? Are they responsible to pay zakat if they don't have, if they're struggling financially, but they have their assets in terms of gold?
Oh, yeah. So that really, to be honest, that's a very specific question, right? So there's like there's a general principle, and then there is a individual case-by-case scenario. I would have to actually know a little bit more details of that person's situation. I don't want to give an answer that's generic and that puts somebody in trouble because their specific details are hidden. For that person who has that question, I would actually recommend that if you are able to reach out in confidence, you can reach out to me through my Facebook page or anybody else that you find trustworthy, and give the full picture, right? If you are not going to give the full picture, the answer may not be accurate, because there are instances where exceptions are made for people like that. Zakat cannot make a person who's paying it poor. Put it that way. It's here to eradicate poverty.
Okay.
No.
And what was the other, before we got into that, you were explaining it, what was that? Because I think the person said the initial explanation you had was right. I don't know what the flip discussion was. Before I jumped in, you were saying it's a good question. I don't know if I missed.
The question about what was the question about? Sorry, I kind of.
No worries. Again, hopefully that's still clear. But inshallah, we can address this offline. So again, thank you so much, Chef Arij. Thank you for all the attendees for joining us today. We pray that may Allah bless us in these last 10 nights of Ramadan and the Muslim Ummah at large. And inshallah, if there's anything we can do for you in your investment journey, please do reach out to us. If there is any shortfall on our side, please forgive us. Otherwise, we appreciate your time, and inshallah, hope to have you join us soon at our next webinar, which will be coming up in a few weeks, inshallah. Thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum. ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.